Hi, everybody. Welcome back to In My Plant-Based Kitchen and Happy New Year. I'm Emma Levez-Laroque. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist and a certified plant-based chef. And it is, I'm going to do two videos this week. So it is one of the days this week that I am inviting you into my kitchen to chat about all things plant-based. And we have a special episode today that I promised to do at the end of last year. That sounds so weird, about resources. It is January, also known as Veganuary, a month when there's a lot of information and motivation and inspiration from different organizations and individuals to support people who are interested in exploring what a vegetarian or vegan diet might look like. There's so many recipes and challenges and all those kinds of things out there right now. And I want to support that as well. So every week this month, I'm going to be sharing some information about transitioning and motivation, ideas, things that I have seen, things that I have helped people with through the consulting that I've done, classes, and so on. I'm going to be sharing recipes and ideas and thoughts and all kinds of stuff. But to get us started, I wanted to talk about some of the resources that I have come across. I've been doing this for a very long time, and I've really seen the whole movement progress from the point where it was really difficult to find any cookbooks, went long before food blogs on the internet, right up to today, where there's so much information out there that it can be very overwhelming if you're just starting out. Who do you listen to? Who do you trust? And so I have some thoughts to share with you about that, about how I have sourced that information over the years, some of the people that I've seen who have been around for a long time. And maybe you'll find something new here today. It was actually really difficult to put this episode together because there are so many amazing resources. So this is by no means a comprehensive, completely complete list. These are just some of my go-tos, and I'll explain why they're my go-tos as we go along. So the first thing I wanted to talk about were our cookbooks. And those of you who know me won't be surprised to hear me say that my go-to for anybody who is starting out with this way of eating is Drina Burton. She is a Vancouver-based whole foods plant-based chef, and she has been in the industry longer than I believe anybody. My very first vegan cookbook came from her. She'll laugh if she's watching this, as I know Drina. This is her Everyday Vegan, was her very first cookbook. You can see, you might be able to tell it's very well used and loved. And this one was and still is, holds some of my very favorite recipes. Drina has over the years done a number of recipe books. I have a couple more here. I didn't want to I have actually three more here. I do have every single one of her cookbooks, and I've bought multiple copies of them for other people. So Plant Powered Families is a great one if you have little ones. Drina has 3 kids, and she has made her recipes very family friendly, but not just for kids. There are things that adults really enjoy as well. Let the Meat Vegan was one of her earlier cookbooks as well. Again, very well used. She did a great cookbook. It has some of our favorite recipes. She has really healthy, healthy ideas for desserts, all round, like everything you could want, from burgers to, but they're very usable recipes, things that you make every day in your kitchen, sauces, and they're impressive things that you can use for occasions as well. Like her sweet potato cake, for example, is delicious and fancy looking, but it doesn't have to be It's not difficult to make. It's not inaccessible. And this is her latest one, Drina's Kind Kitchen. Sorry, it's probably backwards on your screen. But again, and this one is a really beautiful cookbook with lots of beautiful pictures as well. So Drina Burton, plant-powered kitchen, I think, is her website as well, or maybe it's just drinaburton.com. But anyway, if you Google Drina Burton, and I will put all of the resources that I'm mentioning today down below in the links. If you haven't heard of her, I highly recommend checking her out. She has also worked with Neil Barnard, who I'll talk about in a second, with PCRM to develop recipes for his diabetes book. But the thing is about her recipes is they're really good for any health condition. They're whole foods, plant-based, especially her later ones where she's really getting away from oil as well. But really even her early ones use very little oil. It's very whole foods, highly recommended, always trusted. So go for that. If you haven't heard of Drina Burton already, which you probably have, check that out. Another one, again, won't be a surprise to many of you, is Angela Liddon. She has, these are just, Angela was one of the first people, Toronto-based, to really make food, a plant-based food, look amazing. She had her website, Oh She Glows, it, you know, and the cookbooks that followed made, you know, her food photography just sort of really put it out there that, wow, this doesn't have to be something that feels like a sacrifice. It's colorful, it's beautiful, it's attractive. So this again is a well-loved cookbook in my kitchen. I often play with the oil or reduce some of the higher calorie or salt, things like that, because this cookbook this is a great place to start if you are just starting out, because it's not going to be the recipes are trustworthy. You can make anyone for company the first time, I would say, and you're going to get a great result. And but they do tend to include some oil, and you know, so if you're oil free, you might have to adapt those as you go. Another one is vegan Risha Gill. This is one of her cookbooks. She has a number of cookbooks now, one for the Instant Pot, one that just has Indian recipes. She's an Indian, US based, I think, chef. And again, her recipes, her website, she has a great blog, social media, super inspiring. Whenever I'm kind of like in a rut, this is one of the ones I go to. I think, oh, you know, she'll be able to come up with something delicious. And again, she really caters to oil-free. You know, not all her recipes are oil-free, but she gives ideas of how to make them oil-free, or, you know, low salt, or different, no soy or gluten-free, or whatever your, you know, need is. So those are three. There are so many. I can't even begin to mention. Love and Lemons is another of my favorite. Chocolate Covered Katie is a great one. But usually, as I'm sure you know, if you're just Googling recipe sites, or Minimalist Baker is another really good go-to. These are all really great ones, but those are some of my favorites. And some of the ones that in particular, Drina Burton, that I really love for the really healthy, whole foods, plant-based recipes, if that's where you're going. Okay, so next, because I think it's important just to say, you know, and again, I think this is why I'm doing this, because there is so much choice out there these days. Sometimes, you know, you Google something, you get 10 recipes, and you think, well, which one should I make? If you're not overly confident with this way of cooking, then you might not be in the place yet to be able to just look at a recipe and say, that's going to work or that's not going to work. So these are great sites to be able to trust. Okay, let's go on to resource sites about health information, because this is my area of specialty. This is what I've studied, and I did so much research when I was first completed my R.H.N. diploma and wanted to specialize in plant-based nutrition. So again, this is by no means a complete list. There are more doctors and dietitians and nutritionists and different people coming out all the time. So what I did here was I chose some of my favorites, first of all, for overall health, and then second, for some specific areas that are really big areas where people are looking to whole foods, plant-based diets to improve their health. And in this area, I chose all people who are really focused on a whole foods, plant-based approach, not just vegan, because as probably a lot of you know at this point, vegan and whole foods, plant-based are not necessarily the same thing. A vegan approach, I consider myself both whole foods, plant-based and vegan. And there certainly are lots of people who are, but there are people who are vegan for ethical reasons and who have a completely, you can have a very unhealthy diet, unfortunately, still on and be vegan, because potato chips are vegan, or a lot of potato chips are vegan. Oreos are vegan. There are lots of things that are vegan that aren't necessarily healthy for you. But I really believe that, especially if you're doing this for health reasons, you want to make sure you have resources that are giving you the information you need about the best possible health outcomes you can have. And even if that's not your primary motivation, and it wasn't mine, as I said in my, what did I call it? My why story or whatever. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a video about why I do this and what my story is, my vegan story. What I have learned, one of the things that I've learned along the way is that if the people that you sometimes see who go vegan for ethical reasons or environmental reasons, then turning around and saying, well, I can't do it, it's unhealthy, it's made me sick, or sometimes that has to do with the fact that a whole foods plant-based approach is not part of that, because this can be, as I've said, I believe the healthiest way to eat, but that isn't naturally true. You have to make an effort to learn about the healthiest way to do this. And if you don't do that, even if you're doing this for reasons other than health, I think you're selling yourself and the movement a little bit short, because the chances are that you will still end up with health issues, and then you won't stick to it. So you really, and I told my story of how when I first went vegan, I did it completely wrong, and I decided to learn how to do it properly, and then that enabled me to stick to the lifestyle. But I could have easily at that point turned around and said, well, man, I ended up in the hospital. I can't eat like this. I've got to go back to a standard North American diet. That's the only healthy way to eat. So that's my point, is I've been there, I've been through that. And so I think that it's really, really important, no matter why you're doing this, to educate yourself about whole foods, plant-based eating, and try to gravitate towards that approach. And like I said before, that's not about perfection. It's not about being completely salt, sugar, oil free necessarily. Everyone finds their own place in this. But I think that the approach of plant forward, plants first, no matter what. And then if you have some other transition foods, I'll be talking more about that as we go through Veganuary. But anyway, I've rambled enough for now. So first step, how not to die. Dr. Greger is an absolute must. Dr. Greger's site, nutritionfacts.org, is an absolute gem. If you are getting started, you can Google any kind of health issue, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, different types of cancer, gout, all kinds of things, or any kind of ingredient you might want to know about, any kind of food. And what Dr. Greger and his team have done is taken all of these these things and looked at the research and kind of put it into understandable terms. They sift through all the research so that and write it out in a way that is easy to absorb, both on the website through videos, and there's also text if you'd rather read it, and through his books. This was the first one, How Not to Die. He also wrote How Not to Diet, and most recently, How Not to Age. And he's just an incredibly funny, wonderful writer, very approachable. I've seen him speak twice. He's just a really great person, and he does this all because he started out, his grandmother, he has his own story. Anyway, you can go and look at that on his site, nutritionfacts.org. This one is highly recommended. It does look a bit intimidating, but it's very, very readable, and a lot of it is towards the end. I think he includes no, he doesn't actually. I think there are a few recipes, but there aren't a lot of recipes. There is an accompanying recipe book with this. If you really want to go completely salt, oil, sugar free, that could be one to look at. But all of this is references, so you can see he really he backs his research up with science. I have a lot of respect for Dr. Greger and his work, so he is definitely one to check out. Dr. Neil Barnard and the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I mentioned that I took the Food for Life training program. So I also met Dr. Barnard, and again, has been around. It's one of the organizations that's been around since the very beginning, the early days. And they've done an incredible amount of research, original research studies, have done a lot of work around raising the awareness of whole foods, plant-based eating for health reasons, for reasons of compassion. They do a lot of work to end animal testing. Wonderful organization, pcrm.org. And Dr. Barnard has a number of very, very approachable books. Again, lots of videos on the PCRM website. They do a podcast called the Exam Room Podcast, which is very entertaining and informative. Again, an organization that tackles all the health topic areas. So whether you're looking at Alzheimer's or dementia or type 2 diabetes, cancer, osteoporosis, whatever it is, you'll find some information on that site. The next one I wanted to mention is Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, who is a vegan gastroenterologist. And microbiome, gut health has become incredibly a lot more information is coming out about it. We're starting to understand how incredibly interconnected our gut health is with the rest, all of our health conditions. And Fiber Fueled is a wonderful book, again, an accompanying cookbook. Dr. Bulsiewicz runs a course, which I have taken. It's amazing. He also has a masterclass. So he's doing a lot of just public education, trying to help people understand the root causes of perhaps their gut issues or other health issues that are related to their gut health. Highly recommended book. And in terms of brain health, the Alzheimer's Solution by Doctors Aisha and Dean Sherzai. They are neuroscientists, the power couple, and they also have an accompanying cookbook to the Alzheimer's Solution. They run a website called the Neuro Plan, or the Brain Docs is their website. Sorry, the braindocs.com, and they have a sort of course program called the Neuro Plan or the Neuro Program, where they talk about, again, just sort of what you start to realize when you start to follow and learn and read and look at all of these different things, is that there's not one diet for diabetes and one diet for Alzheimer's prevention and one diet for heart disease and one diet for this. It's all the same, which simplifies it incredibly. It just, that is one of the things I love about this, because it is, when you look for dietary information on the internet, or it can become incredibly complicated, or it seems complicated, and oh my goodness, if I have this, I've got to eat this way, and if I've got this, I've got to eat this way. That is not the case with whole foods plant-based eating. Of course, there are certain foods that you can eat for if you've got high cholesterol, you want to include a lot of cruciferous vegetables to help to clear excess cholesterol out of your system, for example. But that also is great fiber, and it's great for your gut health, and that translates to better brain health. So it's all really the same way of eating, and it makes it much more approachable and sort of just, if you eat lots of fiber, if you eat lots of plants, if you eat some foods every day from the beans and green, you eat your beans, your greens, your fruits and vegetables, your grains and legumes, your just eat that whole variety of foods and keep it interesting, keep it varied, then you're going to be doing a good thing no matter what your health situation is. So the Scher's eyes, the brain dots, that would be one to look up if you are, or a loved one is, if looking to be proactive if you're concerned about brain health. Great resource. A couple of ones that I wanted to mention. The China study was a game changer for us. This is one I read early on by Dr. Colin Campbell. He's mentioned in the documentary Forks Over Knives, along with Dr. Esselstyn, who wrote another great book, Preventing and Reversing Heart Disease. So the China study is based around a 40-year study, or based on about a 40-year study that Dr. Campbell did on cancer and animal protein. So it's a very motivating book in terms of getting the animal protein out of your diet. That was a game changer for my husband when he was getting away from cheese. So that's a good one, and I know it's been a game changer for so many people. Super Immunity is a really motivating book about just making your immune system as strong and resilient as you can. Dr. Joel Furman, who has also written a ton of books, and actually China study, Dr. Campbell and his family, because he has a son who is a doctor as well, and a daughter daughter-in-law who does a ton of wonderful cooking videos and things like that. They have a website called nutritionstudies.org, which I'll also link below. And Dr. Campbell has other books as well. These are just just a few from my collection. So back to Dr. Furman, a lot of really great books. He has about immunity and protecting yourself against cancer and things like that. So being really proactive. Dr. Furman's, his books are great. I find his website is a bit more limited in terms of the free resources that it has. But again, just another really great resource, and one I know who has inspired a lot of people. Dr. D Nornes, she's been around again since the beginning, and this is his latest book with his wife, Ann Ornish, and all about the whole approach of not just whole foods, plant-based eating, but stress reduction and spending time with loved ones and exercise and meditation and things like that. So a holistic approach to good health. And Dr. Ornish has done, again, some groundbreaking work. He was among the first, along with Dr. Esselstyn, to talk about the idea that we could actually reverse heart disease. And did a bunch of studies around that. And now he's doing a lot of work around Alzheimer's. So he's another really great one to have a look at. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention a couple of other favorites. Dr. Shireen Kassam and Zara Kassam, Dr. Zara Kassam, who respectively run organizations. The Plant-Based Health Professionals was founded by Shireen, and Plant-Based Canada was founded by Zara, and along with Michelle Fidel, a dietitian who she works with. And both of them are just powerhouses of amazing energy and information. Plant-Based Health Professionals has an incredible collection of free fact sheets about all kinds of different health issues. I believe some free webinars and things too, but you can also pay a nominal membership fee and have access to a ton of resources. So they're a couple of my favorites. And they wrote this great book about just scientific answers to your nutrition questions. So again, if you're getting started and you're kind of wondering what's what, they literally have kind of mapped it all out here. So does soy affect the thyroid gland? I have, it just answering questions that anybody who's working in the nutrition field and in the plant-based nutrition field is hearing all the time. Where do I get my protein? What about calcium? Can I get enough calcium on a plant-based diet, et cetera, et cetera? And they've got the science to back it. So that's a great one. Another very wonderful resource is Brenda Davis, a registered dietitian here in BC. And she is becoming vegan. Is her and Vicenta Molina, who's another RD in Vancouver, have written just, this is a little bit more in depth. So if you're interested in really diving into the nutrition, this is a great book. But Brenda and Vicenta have a number of really wonderful readable books about all kinds of different health issues to do, or a lot to do with diabetes, but other things too. So look them up. And finally, last but not least, this is not a vegan books per se, but very plant forward. And I wanted to mention it because it's a really great one for women who are going through menopause or really any kind of hormonal changes in their lives. Dr. Aviva Ram, another really, really great resource. So this one is called Hormone Intelligence. And it kind of, I just tried to cover the spectrum of a lot of the health conditions that I hear of at people looking to a whole foods, plant-based diet to try to improve. And actually one I didn't pull out is Dr. Brooke Goldner. I mentioned her in another video. Anything to do with inflammation. She has incredible resources on her website as well. So I'll link that one as well. All right, what else? Finally, in terms of motivation, resources for motivation, I didn't pull out any books here, but I mentioned last time that one of my early motivators was Diet for a New America by John Robbins. John and his son Ocean now have a site called Food Revolution. They have a book by the same name, I think a documentary as well. And they're incredibly, they're amazing in terms of the really solid information, well-researched blog posts that they put out. They do an annual Food Revolution Summit and interview tons of experts, which is a great way to get to know a lot of different people, get exposed to a lot of new ideas. And they do a lot of stuff around environment and food and, lots of motivation stuff. So they're great. Food Revolution Summit, foodrevolution.com, I think. The Rich Roll podcast is one of my favorites. Rich Roll interviews, actually probably almost everybody I've mentioned here has been interviewed on his podcast. He is a vegan athlete, and so he does a lot of motivational stuff, which is just wonderful to listen to the interviews. And also I've learned about all kinds of other interesting motivational people through that podcast. So that's a good one to look up. And then, of course, documentaries. So there are, starting out with Forks Over Knives, which is older now, but still very impactful. And Forks Over Knives, of course, has a website and recipe books and all that kind of stuff too. So if you haven't checked out Forks Over Knives yet, that's another really good one. Another documentary, or a few documentaries, those by Kip Anderson and Keegan Kuhn, starting with Cowspiracy, What the Health. They kind of look into some of the issues of why our society some of these issues are controversial and so on. So they're very interesting and impactful. Earthlings, if you're interested in the animal rights perspective, is a very impactful, difficult to watch, but it will, I guarantee it will speak to you. And Game Changers is another one, athlete focused, that has touched a lot of people. I really, especially when I was starting out and learning about all of this stuff, documentaries were really important for my motivation. And I think there are really, when you're starting to just try to develop your why and figure out what this is all about, I think they can be really helpful in getting started. Eating Animals is another one that's adapted from the book by Jonathan Safran Foer, by the same name. And that really looks at the environmental, public health, economic focus. So that's another good one. And then if you are not already following Farm Sanctuary, there are lots of different farm sanctuaries, but the Farm Sanctuary, one of the first one, headed up by Jean Bauer, different locations in the US. I went to visit the location in California, and honestly, it was one of the most memorable experiences I've had in my life so far. Just going to a place where animals were treated so respectfully and cared for so well. It was a really wonderful experience. So again, if that's one of the reasons why you're doing this, visiting a farm sanctuary close to you, and there are many in BC, depending on where you're listening from. There are lots in the US as well. That can be a really, really wonderful experience and life-changing perhaps for some. That's it. I know I've thrown a lot at you. I'm going to put a lengthy sort of outline of this in the notes, the show notes, so that if you missed anything or you want to go and have a look at anything, I would say I'm not saying that you should look up all this stuff. I'm saying these are some of the resources that I trust. So if you're looking at this for a particular reason, maybe look at one of the resources I mentioned that is specific to that reason, and start there and just start to listen and start to explore websites and get on forums and talk to other people, and send me a question if you have one. Love to hear from you. I've been hearing from a lot of you sending in different comments and questions, and I love that. So thank you so much for reaching out. And I will look forward to hopefully seeing you in the Veganuary sort of series that I'm going to do. Starting tomorrow, I will launch that first video. So I look forward to seeing you then. Have a great day. Bye for now.